Two tails, one head, yin yang. This book, there's a cool little wave. I forget what that type of art is called. Two tails, one head, yin yang. Three heads, old yang. Two heads, one tail, yang yin. Oh my. Three heads, old yang. This used to be on top of here. This little piece right there, but switching out that top piece, this was still important the way I got it, so I turned it into a little cauldron. Take the lid off. Let's put space inside there, right? Anyway, felt the need to not just do nothing with something that was sacrificial or sacred or ritualistic. So I turned it into a little, now you can hold it. Actually, last night we were watching Moana 2, and I had this in my hand, and I was feeling in my body pressure either staying to help do that alchemical process, right? Or you could release it if it feels too much. It's kind of a cool little idea. Don't know why I never thought of that. Two heads, one tail. Young yin. If you haven't seen Moana 2, I feel it is very timely. And you should hurry up and do so. What are you waiting around here for? Alright. I also wanted to show you this I got on the beach. God. It's just a massive beast of a rock. Right? Toted that quite a way down the beach. It was a serious hustle. I was on that vacation where I sent all that videos of the ocean. They're in my history. If you wanted to check that out, I've got a whole nature playlist if anyone was interested. Anyway, before we get into our reading, we're going to start with a brief passage from 5-Minute Pete the Cat Stories. Noah picked this one last night. Also kind of tied in with Moana 2 a little bit. I feel like it also ties into our lives, consequently. Valentine's Day was right before that in the book, interestingly enough. Pete the Cat, Cave Cat Pete. Cave Cat Pete wakes up early. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. Today is going to be a great day, Pete thinks. But Pete's bed starts to shake. His friend Vinny, the velociraptor, is coming to visit. It's a perfect day for a picnic, says Vinny, so excited that he jumps on Pete's bed. What a great idea, says Pete. Who should we invite? Everyone, Vinny yells. Vinny does not know how to use his inside voice. Right on, says Pete. Pete loves picnics. It's because he's a cave cat. That's why he says it that way. He jumps out of it. He jumps out of his bed. It's not just me. He jumps out of his bed to invite all his friends. It's cave cat times, so Pete has to walk everywhere. First, Pete finds his good friend Ethel the Apatosaurus. To get her attention, Pete climbs all the way up to the top of the tallest tree. Would you like to come to a picnic? Pete asks. I'd love to, says Ethel. What can I bring? How about a really big salad, Pete suggests. What a great idea, says Ethel. I love salad. I'm on it. Get my whole hand in there. Pete wanders along the river. He sees T-Rex. T-Rex plays guitar. T-Rex is awesome. Hey, T-Rex, Pete yells. Want to come to a picnic? Sweet, says T-Rex. Can I bring my guitar? Definitely, says Pete. We can jam. Count me in, says T-Rex. Is it okay if I bring Al the Allosaurus? She's a whiz on the drums. The more the merrier, says Pete. See you later. Rock on, they say. Pete sees his friend Terry the pterosaur in the sky. Hi, Pete, she calls. Pete invites Terry to the picnic, too. Would you mind giving me a lift, Pete asks. Sure, says Terry. Climb aboard. Pete sees the spiked tail of his main man, Skip, the Stegosaurus. How are you feeling today, Skip? Pete asks. Skip has been sick with the sniffles. Better, says Skip. Thanks for asking. You up for a picnic? I think so, says Skip. I'd hate to miss the fun. It's almost time for the picnic. Cave Cat Pete rushes through the forest. He doesn't want to be late. What will all the dinosaurs talk about if I'm not there? He thinks as he runs. Whoops! Pete trips over Trini the Triceratops. Are you okay? Asks Pete. Am I okay? Asks Trini. I'm fine. I'm a dinosaur. Are you okay? I'm okay, but I'm running a little. We're playing hide and seek, Trini says before Pete can finish. I think I hid a little too well. How long have you been hiding? Asks Pete. What day is it today? Asks Trini. Pete thinks Trini has been playing hide and seek a little too long. It's the day of our picnic, says Pete. All the dinosaurs are going to be there. Want to come? Do I ever? Maybe somebody there will play hide and seek with me, she says. Trini and Pete head to the picnic together. Pete rides on Trini's forehead and holds onto her horns. Sounds like an interesting maneuver. When they arrive at the picnic ground, everyone is there. Vinny and Ethel are setting up the picnic tables. T-Rex and Al are warming up to play some tunes. Terry and Trini are playing hide and seek. Even Skip seems to be enjoying himself. It doesn't get any better than this, says Pete. T-Rex comes over then. Hey, Pete, he asks, is there anything else to eat? I'm a carnivore. I don't eat salad. Trini comes over. I can't play hide and seek with Terry, Trini says. She's flying around peeking. Skip comes over. I don't feel so good, he says, and he sneezes. The dinosaurs all start to argue. It is very loud. The picnic will be ruined if Pete doesn't do something. He leans over to Owl and says, can you give me a beat? Pete takes out his guitar and he starts to sing. Before long, everyone is having a great time. You know, T-Rex tells Ethel, I've never actually tried salad before. Try it, says Ethel. I bet you'll like it. T-Rex tastes the salad. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Yum, says T-Rex. This is delicious. Everyone grabs a plate and digs in. I don't buy it. After lunch is over, everyone wants to keep the picnic going a little bit longer. They decide to play hide and seek. Pete is happy that everyone is getting along. He feels lucky to have such great friends. Now he just has to find them. After the game is over, they all cheer. Pete found all the dinosaurs, even Trini. This was the best picnic ever, everyone says. It was the best picnic because you guys are the best friends ever, Pete says. And no one can argue with that. All right. Now that the important stuff is dealt with, get into the silly I-ching business. All right. Our bottom trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, solid, solid. This is Qian, heaven. Qian is superhuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things. From the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with the truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and the seeds fall to earth. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken. This is Khan water. Khan is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. Li is fire and light. This is danger, exposure and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. Khan water above, let's see here, Qian heaven is hexagram 5. Once our changing lines change, that being line 3 and line 5, we'll have a bottom trigram of solid, solid, broken. This is the trigram. Dewy, lake or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. She is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Our top trigram will transform from broken, solid, broken to broken, broken, broken. This is Kun Earth. I think we got this hexagram yesterday, or 2 days ago, maybe. Where are we at here? There we are. Kun is Earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. Kun Earth above dewy lake or marsh is hexagram 19. Yep. Did have that. Shake it up. All right. Before we get into this, I want to say, what do I want to say? That's something to say. I posted some videos on my community page by Terrence McKenna. The last one that I posted was really interesting, and it also said that he had the idea that time was being pulled forward by an attractor, similar to the concept of dropping a ball bearing in a bowl, and it'll go up and down the sides, lower and lower until it eventually reaches the bottom. I feel like probably most people can relate to the concept of feeling pulled along, especially if you feel there's kind of like a calling, if you want to call it that, that you're not necessarily clear on, but it feels as though it already happened and you're finding out as you go. I think that's an interesting concept. It also, in that video, I'll leave a link to the video in the description box, but had to do with nature abhorring habit, and that it creates the novel, and that the best thing we can do for our children is leave them with a more complex and diverse universe, and that things potentially will find their best balance. And he spoke with that in relation to the I-ming, and that there's kind of like the ideal setup up for the ideal reading, the stack of the different lines. And so he also mentioned that the goal moving along for, nature in his mind was that everything would be in proper relation to everything else. And I believe likely quantumly that's already the case, but as we're realizing it in the 3D, it may look a certain way and feel different than what we're used to. But ultimately, I believe that makes a ton of sense, that we can't really, that's kind of the not seeing into reality if we're demonizing others, especially since that's not a thing, right? And anyway, all of that being said, as we kind of jostle together and find out how all of this works moving forward, it would be nice to have a nice time about it and feel a sense of kind of excitement and exploration and a finding out of possibly kind of the reverberations of something that may have happened in the future, if you will, and just sort of breadcrumb it through the forest. I know that's kind of maybe a creepy concept, since there's a witch that gets thrown in the fire and all of that, so maybe that aside. But anywho's, there's usually some sort of villain in all the stories, right? But that can just be maybe our misunderstanding of reality. All right, we'll be getting our titles from the Taoist I Ching by I-ming. Hexagram 5 is waiting for the proper time and gathering primal energy, gradually restoring the primordial in the midst of the temporal. All that being said, I will say, I feel sort of like a nexus point, or some sort of center for a collection. Did I show this? Of light gathering or quantum energy. And I want to do, my part best I can. Hexagram 19, which puts our primary hexagram in the broader context. Overseeing, keeping watch over the restoration and growth of primal energy and repulsion of acquired energy of conditioning. Yeah, that kind of concept, right? Feel a little bit waiting and overseeing. Okay. So we'll start with our I Ching commentary by Hilary Barrett called Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. It's a nice introductory commentary, but also quite profound. Hexagram 5 are to understand the question we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle. That question will have the general context always of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment in time. We'll understand the answer when we see how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here's some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. All right. Hexagram 5, our primary hexagram, waiting. Key questions. How can you wait patiently and with commitment? While you wait, how can you best make yourself ready? Oracle. Waiting with truth and confidence, shining out, creating success. Constancy brings good fortune, fruitful to cross the great river. You wait for what you need, like a farmer waiting for the weather to change. This is not a passive state. You can dance for rain, influence events by bringing yourself into harmony with the outcome you need. But you cannot force this. You can only attend to it. You will need patience. It may all take much longer than you had imagined. When you are fully present in waiting, your intense attention shines out like a beacon, beginning a creative engagement with the world, not by working on anything, but by waiting on it and holding your faith. And in crossing the river, committing yourself to go as far as you can toward what you're waiting for, you begin the transition into the world where it is real. I love this picture, image here. All these people having a meal, hanging out, maybe it's partying, maybe they're playing games. It does look like food's there, but maybe games are after. Image. The clouds are above heaven, waiting. A noble one eats, drinks, and relaxes with music. A noble one doesn't hover anxiously in the doorway, watching the skies. Instead, with sureness and constancy in his heart and fluidity in his actions, he thrives in the present moment. Feasting when you can't cultivate your fields shows confidence, and it keeps you rested and prepared for the moment when you can act. In ancient China, where the ancestral spirits helped to bring better weather, you would invite them to share your meals, revitalizing your relationship with what provides for you. Sequence. Waiting follows from hexagram 4, not knowing. Young things cannot do without nourishment, and so waiting follows. Waiting means the way of eating and drinking. Naturally, young things don't spring instantly into a state of full growth, and nor does wisdom or knowing. They must be nourished patiently over time. Pair. Waiting forms a pair with hexagram 6, arguing. Waiting means no progress. Arguing means no connection. Lacking what you need, you could challenge the injustice and argue your case, or wait and have faith. Though you're not moving forward, you might be inviting help and connection. I invite help and connection. All right. I showed this before, but my daughter did a really cool Ice King drawing when she was younger. She's a really good artist now. Love you, Fins. Name's Finley. 19. Used to call her Fins Grins. The only Fins that grins. All right. Hexagram 19, nearing. Key questions. How does this want to grow? How can you take responsibility for its development? What would your greater self do? Our supporting hexagram puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. This is an interesting picture as well. You guys got a staff too, man. What's up, brother? Oracle. Nearing, creating success from the source. Constancy bears fruit. Reaching an end in the 8th month means a pitfall. Nearing means drawing closer and gazing down over what you approach. There are 2 strands of meaning here. The approach of a greater spirit or presence in an ongoing process of growth, and your approach as the one who pays attention and takes responsibility. Like the creative drive of Hexagram 1, this great growing energy comes from the source, asks for your full participation, and seeks to reach fruition and be realized. But its surging growth can be disastrously interrupted by reaching an end in the 8th month. The 8th month is the month of harvest. If this comes around too soon for what nears to reach full growth, if the situation demands that you produce a tangible result prematurely, then this means misfortune. Or if you focus exclusively on results instead of watching patiently over developments, if your expectations are out of touch with the pace of growth, then there is misfortune. Having something to show for a process of growth doesn't mean you've arrived at its outcome. Harvest is not the end. As each harvest is gathered in and stored, the seasonal cycle of growth continues. You need to stay present to its ongoing changes, wherever they might lead. Image. Above the lake is earth, nearing. A noble one teaches and reflects untiringly, accepts and protects the people without limit. A noble one has the inner, reflective depths of the lake contained within the protective, accepting qualities of the earth. She is the one with endless capacity to reflect, interact, and explain, to shelter and nurture people as a parent protects a child. She has the strength and maturity, and so naturally she becomes responsible. Sequence. Nearing follows from Hexagram 18, corruption. With work to do, greatness becomes possible, and so nearing follows. Nearing means greatness. The experience of dealing with corruption gives rise to nearing. What was once a curse becomes a source of strength. By doing the work of dealing with the old poisons, you create a secure foundation for your greater self to emerge. No negative pattern or insecurity need remain to obstruct the process of growth. Pair. Nearing forms a pair with Hexagram 20, seeing. What is right for nearing and seeing? Someone reaches out, someone seeks. Hexagram 19 and 20 respond to one another. Seeing watches for nearing to approach and reach out. They connect, and each completes the other. When you are nearing, you become the help, guidance, or opportunity waiting to be seen. We'll now go back to our primary hexagram 5 and read our changing lines, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. Our changing lines are 3 and 5. Each of them have their own general context. 3 has the general context, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5 has the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 3 of our primary hexagram 5, waiting. Waiting in the bog invites the arrival of robbers. A bog is not a healthy place to wait, and yet your wagon is sinking in up to its axles while you wait to get the measure of things. Perhaps you feel that you must have it all under control, especially your expectations, for fear of further suffering. Yet sitting here makes you vulnerable to unscrupulous people who take advantage of your inability to move, and to your own lesser self. When you don't expect to make progress, negativity arises. Impatience, guilt, and the creeping loss of hope, and arguments about how things should be done. The dinosaurs, right? Getting in a scuffle. And then changing line 5, waiting with food and drink, constancy, good fortune. It all takes much longer than you imagined, and you're not in a position to dictate a faster pace. Sometimes the best way to be true to your vision is simply to rest and recuperate for the journey. That means taking pleasure in this moment and not postponing your happiness. Make the investment to replenish relationships. Create opportunities for freer, more harmonious communication. When you are well nourished, you can wait without tiring. You can be constant, which brings good fortune. Right. Now, moving on to James Dekorne and his Gnostic Book of Changes. I've left links to it in the description box below. It is pretty phenomenal in that he synthesizes several commentaries, and he is a practitioner of the Tao as well, so he gives his own helpful editor's notes and adds really cool quotes in from things like the Kabbalah, stuff like that. He also calls Hexagram 5 waiting. Other titles might be nourishment, calculated inaction, attending, biding one's time, nourishment through inaction, waiting for nourishment, moistened. A quote from D.F. Hook, waiting with the assurance that a blessing will come. Judgment, leg. Waiting intimates that with sincerity and firmness there will be brilliant success and good fortune. It will be advantageous to cross the great stream. Wilhelm/Baines. Waiting. If you are sincere, you have light and success. Perseverance brings good fortune. It furthers one to cross the great river. Blofeld. Calculated in action, or exhibiting the power to wait, and the confidence of others win brilliant success. Righteous persistence brings good fortune. It will be advantageous to cross the great river or sea. The significance of this hexagram is that inaction while awaiting the outcome of events will enable us to avoid a danger now threatening. Firmness, clarity of mind, and success in winning the confidence of others are now demanded of us. With them, our undertakings will prosper. Moreover, this period of inaction is a good time in which to go on a journey or else for relaxation and enjoyment. Lou, waiting. If you are sincere, you will have glory, light, and success. Continuing leads to good fortune. It is of benefit to cross the great water, to travel to remote places. Carter, attending, possessing conformity, shining, growing, trials significant, harvesting, wading the great river. Editor, possessing conformity is translated as inner and outer are in accord. Confidence of the spirits has been captured. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of being compelled to wait for and serve something. It emphasizes that fixing your attention on what is required while waiting carefully for the right moment to act is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to attend. Sloughnessy, moistened. There is a return. Radiant receipt. Determination is auspicious. Beneficial to ford the great river. The image, leg. The image of clouds ascending over the sky forms waiting. The superior man, in accordance with this, eats and drinks, feasts and enjoys himself as if there were nothing else to employ him. Wilhelm/Baines. They had a picnic, right? Clouds rise up to heaven, the image of waiting. Thus the superior man eats and drinks, is joyous, and of good cheer. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes clouds rising to the zenith, inactivity. The superior man will pass this time in feasting and enjoyment. Wu. The clouds ascend to the sky. This is waiting. Thus the Junsi, or chief son, or superior person, enjoys food in peace. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Waiting shows peril in front, but its subject does not allow himself to be involved in the dangerous defile. The success and sincerity and good fortune and firmness are shown by the position of the fifth line, which is correctly situated in the central place assigned by heaven. Crossing the great stream will be followed by meritorious achievement. Leg. Waiting is composed of the lower trigram of strength and the upper trigram of peril. Strength confronted by peril might be expected to advance boldly and deal with it at once. But the lesson of the hexagram is that it is wiser to wait until success is sure. In the situation at hand, firm correctness is all that is required for eventual victory. Crossing the great stream is a frequent expression in the I Ching, which symbolizes the undertaking of hazardous enterprises, or encountering great difficulties. Historically, it refers to the Yellow River, which the lords of Chao had to cross in their revolution against the Yin dynasty tyrants. The crossing made by King Wu in 1122 BC was one of the greatest deeds in the history of China and was preceded by a long period of waiting until success could be assured. Regarding the image, it is said that the cloud that has risen at the top of the sky has nothing to do but wait until the harmony of heaven and earth require it to discharge its store of rain. The superior man is likewise counseled to enjoy his idle time while waiting for the correct moment to deal with the approaching danger. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Strength in the face of danger here consists of the will to sit tight and do nothing. The superior man carries on as if nothing was the matter and nourishes himself through inaction. There are many kinds of courage. Perhaps the greatest of all is the courage to remain unflinchingly in place when all the circumstances seem to cry out for action. It takes far more courage to wait for the dragon to slowly come to you than to rush forth and attack him in his lair. As a strategy, to outweight your opponent through pure willpower and inner strength can be more effective than a direct attack, but it can only succeed when you are truly strong. It is as if the real battle takes place on the inner planes, and the first one to act in the world thereby concedes defeat. A very large part of the work consists in disciplining oneself to wait, to take on action until some indefinite time in the future, to take no action until some indefinite time in the future. This is exceedingly difficult to do and creates incredible stresses within the psyche, which is exactly why it is necessary. Psychologically, to cross the great stream is to subdue all the autonomous instincts, drives, and emotions that are accustomed to responding whenever they are stimulated. As long as waiting creates feelings of stress, you can be sure that the battle has not been won. When you can wait like the superior man, as if there were nothing else to do, then you can allow yourself to hope that you may be getting somewhere. To nourish oneself through inaction is to digest and absorb the energy of one's instinctive responses. As in any nourishing assimilation, their strength then becomes your strength. The true adept is one who has digested all of his passion and is thereby empowered to use it for his own purposes. Instead of engaging in civil war, he has united his forces to act in the world. A quote from ZBS Halevi in Kabbalah and Exodus. Tradition says that Moses did not set the tabernacle up straight away, but delayed for 3 months, despite the fact that the people wanted to dedicate it at once. In this is repeated a lesson of patience concerning matters of the spirit. For instead of accepting their teacher's word, which conveyed the will of God, the Israelites sought to impose their own will over what they had made. This phenomenon is not unknown among those who cannot wait, which is a vital part of esoteric training. Unfortunately, it has to be demonstrated over and over again that the timing of a spiritual event is contingent upon a cosmic schedule and not the will of the individual. We'll now turn to our supporting hexagram, 19, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 19, he calls approach. Other titles might be the symbol of advance and arrival, nearing, overseeing, condescension, getting ahead, promotion, conduct, drawing near, becoming great, the forest, advance, advancing, two people advancing together, or a good influence which hasn't been seen or felt for some time is approaching. Quote from D.F. Hook. Judgment. Leg. Approach means successful progress through firm correctness. In the 8th month there will be evil. Blowfold. Approach. Sublime success. Righteous persistence brings reward. However, when the 8th month is reached, misfortune will befall. The 8th moon of the lunar calendar corresponds approximately to September. Ritzema/Karcher, nearing, spring growing, harvesting trial, culminating, tending towards the 8th moon, possessing a pitfall. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of approaching and being approached. It emphasizes that acting without immediately expecting to attain what you desire is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary 2. Overseeing is very successful, beneficial if correct. If you go on until the 8th month, there will be misfortune. If you ride on the momentum of the time and do not know to turn back, at a certain point, deterioration will inevitably set in. After flourishing has reached its climax, and there will surely be misfortune. Woo. Condescension is great, pervasive, and persevering, etc. Condescension, as used in several judgments, has two meanings: to condescend or to look down from a higher position, and to press forward with authority. The image, leg. The earth over a marsh, the image of approach. The superior man is inexhaustible in his instruction and unflagging in his nourishing support of the people. Wilhelm/Baines. The earth above the lake, the image of approach. Thus, the superior man is inexhaustible in his will to teach, and without limits in his tolerance and protection of the people. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes land rising above a marsh. The superior man's teaching and his affection for his juniors are inexhaustible. Nothing hinders him in his care for the people. The lower component trigram suggests the nourishment which the superior man gives joyfully to others. The upper trigram symbolizes the great bulk of those who benefit. Ritzema/Karcher. Above marsh possessing earth, nearing. A chunsu, or chief son, or superior person, uses teaching to ponder without exhausting. A chunsu uses tolerating to protect the commoners without delimiting. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. In approach, we see the dynamic lines gradually increasing and advancing. The lower trigram is the symbol of being pleased and the upper of being compliant. The strong line is in the central position and is properly responded to. It is the way of heaven to bring progress and success through firm correctness. However, the advancing power will decay after no long time. Leg. Approach suggests the approach of authority, to inspect, to comfort, or to rule. The figure shows two dynamic lines advancing on the four magnetic lines above them. Their action will be powerful and successful, but it must be governed by rectitude and a caution that understands the nature of continuous change. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. 2 steps forward are followed by 1 step backward. The superior man remains true to the work regardless of fluctuations within the psyche. I think it was Brene Brown that talked about growth. Sometimes we want to be way up here when we're like at a 5. We want to be at 10. But she talked about this very thing, that when you have a big jump, it's almost like your subconscious doesn't accept that. It has to be coaxed there over a long period of time. And so it's almost like you feel a big setback if you feel like you're all of a sudden way higher than you were before in terms of whatever area of your life. And yeah, very similar kind of concept. The meaning of approach is derived from the 2 dynamic lines advancing from below to encounter the magnetic lines above. These two are firm allies, and the action of the superior man in the image suggests that their ascent is one of benevolent regard for the welfare of their subordinates. Only the third line need change for the hexagram to become number 11, harmony. We are reminded of the proper relationship between the ego and the self. When they advance together, the magnetic forces in the rest of the psyche are eventually transformed. This hexagram recognizes the inevitably slow progress of the work. Rome wasn't built in a day, and that advances are always followed by retreats. The point is that if one maintains the will to advance, one can be confident that the work is advancing, regardless of appearances. A quote from Feng Yulan in A Short History of Chinese Philosophy: Confucius tried his best, but the issue he left to Ming. Ming is often translated as fate, destiny, or decree. To Confucius, it meant the decree of heaven or will of heaven. Thus, to know Ming means to acknowledge the inevitability of the world as it exists, and so to disregard one's external success or failure. If we can act in this way, we can, in a sense, never fail. For if we do our duty, that duty through our very act is morally done, regardless of the external success or failure of our action. Without changing lines, the hexagram suggests a progressive advance in the matter at hand. Nature being what it is, however, no advance can be sustained indefinitely, and an eventual regression can be expected. This observation is such a truism that we must assume it is more than usually applicable to the current situation. I don't know why I just turned this off. We'll go back to our primary hexagram 5 and read our changing lines 3 and 5. Each of them, well, they put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements. They may not agree with one another. That being said, if they don't, we're just to gnaw on that and see what that might mean for us in our lives. Changing line 3 has the general context, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 5 has the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 3 of hexagram 5. Leg. The third line dynamic shows its subject in the mud, close by the stream. He thereby invites the approach of injury. Wilhelm/Baines, waiting in the mud brings about the arrival of the enemy. Blofeld. Inactivity amidst the mud. This permits the approach of evil. This suggests a danger of our being so bogged down that we can neither fight nor flee. Wu. He is waiting in the mud. This invites harm. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. He is waiting in the mud. The calamity in the upper trigram is close at hand. He invites the approach of injury, but if he is reverent and careful, he will not be worsted. Wilhelm/Baines. The misfortune is outside. Seriousness and caution prevent defeat. Blofeld. Remaining inactive in the midst of mud subjects us to external dangers, but the approaching evil will not harm us if we exercise care. We must not allow the mud to bog us down. Ritzema/Karcher. Calamity located outside indeed, originating from my involving outlawry, respectful consideration, not destroying indeed. Clary 2. Once I have brought on enemies, I am careful not to be defeated. Wu. Inviting harm is a self-inflicted act. With respect and caution, however, he will be free from defeat. Leg. Here the subject is on the brink of the stream. His advance to this position has provoked resistance, which may result in his injury. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man attempts a complex undertaking without sufficient capacity for success in one try. He finds himself mired in the intricacies, thereby inviting enemies onto the scene. Caution is required. Wing. Because of premature action on your part, inspired perhaps by anxiety, you will leave yourself open to attack. This situation is truly difficult because you are vulnerable. Only extreme caution will protect you. Editor. In its most neutral interpretation, this line is an image of serious vulnerability. An unstable position invites attack. Mud is earth mixed with water. Psychologically, sensation, earth, and emotion, water, unite in a gooey morass, I've never known how to say that well, of fear or anxiety, which leaves one vulnerable to harm. Since the work proceeds dialectically upward or downward, this position points out the danger of emotional responses. You could lose what you have gained unless you hold firm. Don't surrender to the complex's urging differentiation. Heed the gnosis which counsels integration. Quote from William James. Instinctive reactions and emotional expressions thus shade imperceptibly into each other. Every object that excites an instinct excites an emotion as well. James Dekorne breaks down changing line 3 into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. Emotional vulnerability threatens the ego's ability to act effectively. And B, you're on shaky footing, take care. And then our changing line 5. Leg, the fifth line dynamic shows its subject waiting amidst the appliances of a feast. Through his firmness and correctness, there will be good fortune. Blowfold, inactivity amidst food and wine, righteous persistence will bring good fortune. We may safely relax and enjoy ourselves, but we must preserve our determination to act when the time is ripe. Cleary 1, waiting with food and wine, it is good to be correct. Woo, he is waiting at feasting, perseverance brings good fortune. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, the good fortune is indicated by his being in the central and correct place. Wilhelm/Baines, because of the central and correct character. Blowfold, the line is a firm one between two yielding lines. Ritzimo/Karcher, using centering, correcting indeed. Cleary 2, being centered correctly. Woo, central and correct. Leg, line 5 is dynamic in the central and correct place of the ruler. All good qualities therefore belong to him. He has triumphed, and with firmness will continue to triumph. Notes and paraphrases. Su, the man fortifies his reserve strength by enjoying the intervals of peace between crises. At the same time, he maintains his orientation to the ultimate goal with optimistic buoyancy. Wing, your difficulties are held in abeyance now, and it is a good time to relax and gain perspective on the situation. While you enjoy your respite, keep in mind that there is still much to be done in the attainment of your goals. Editor, this line recalls the image: the superior man eats and drinks, feasts and enjoys himself as if there were nothing else to employ him. If this is the only changing line, the hexagram becomes number 11, harmony, suggesting that one is situated very well indeed. A quote from ZBS Halevi in an introduction to the Kabbalah. A meditating man may appear at a glance to be doing nothing, but as with Buddha seated under his Bodhi tree, this apparent physical inaction hid the cosmic activity of inner illumination. James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 down into one succinct possible definition. You are surrounded by nourishing influences. Relax and allow the situation to mature. We'll now take a look at what I-ming has to say about the matter in the Taoist Te Ching that he wrote in 1796 as Taoist Adams. And he is awesome. This is awesome. Primary hexagram 5, waiting. In waiting, there is sincerity and great development. It is good to be correct. It is beneficial to cross a great river. This is alchemical in nature. Explanation. Waiting means there is a waiting. As to the qualities of the hexagram, above is water, a pitfall, below is heaven, which is sound and strong. Being sound and strong and able to manage in the midst of danger, it is therefore called waiting. This hexagram represents nurturing strength, awaiting the proper time. It follows on the previous hexagram, difficulty. Difficulty is movement and action in danger. restoring the primordial while in the midst of the temporal. Therefore one travels the path of strength and firmness and takes the true yang fallen in water out, i.e., one takes the primordial out of the conditioned. However, when the yang has been trapped in water for a long time, it is not possible to get out of danger immediately. One must lead it on gradually, waiting for the proper time to gather it. One cannot presume upon one's strength and set about the task impetuously. That would bring on danger. People give rise to yin from the culmination of yang. The yang in the center of heaven runs into the palace of earth, so that earth is filled in and becomes water. The yin in the center of earth enters the palace of heaven, so that heaven is hollowed and becomes fire. To understand what they're saying, they give the images of the hexagrams, right? So you can see how what they're saying has a visual effect. At this point, working with false yin and false yang, the strong becomes weak and the submissive becomes stubborn. The intent is not sincere and the mind is not right. Being aggressive, one is not aware of danger and is not receptive enough to notice obstacles. One acts dangerously, hoping for the remote chance of luck, knowing no limits. Now, if you want to get out of danger, it is necessary to know danger. Being able to recognize danger is being able to believe it is dangerous. Once you believe in the danger, you have inner control. Being careful and wary, you refine yourself and wait for the proper time. Every act is confined to its proper place, and one is not damaged by external influences. Therefore, in the path of waiting, there is sincerity and great development, gaining good fortune by being correct. Having sincerity and great development means believing in danger and being able to cope with it. That correctness is good means that by maintaining correctness, you can be free from danger. Once you believe in the danger and keep to what is right, you fend off danger by strength and firmness, and use danger to nurture strength and firmness, awaiting the time to move forward and enter the lair looking for the tiger. Not only are you able to avoid being injured by negative energy, you can also take the true yang fallen into water and return it to the palace of heaven. This is the reason that it is beneficial to cross a great river. A great river is most dangerous. This is the image of water, which is something that fells and traps yang. That danger is most great, believing in true strength. Believing in the danger, you cross it correctly. When the time is not yet ripe, you nurture strength, and when the time comes, you advance strength. Advancing it and nourishing it at the proper times is how you can be in danger yet cope with it, and how you can get out of danger. That strength is beneficial wherever it goes. Now our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hexagram 19, overseeing. Overseeing is creative and developmental, beneficial if correct. In the 8th month, there is misfortune. Explanation. Overseeing is watching over. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is earth, following, and below is lake, joyful. Joyfully following truth, acting in accord with that joy, it is therefore called overseeing. This hexagram represents watching over the furnace, culling the elixir. It follows on the previous hexagram, following. In following, thunder seeks lake. Lake returns to thunder. This means that when feeling returns to essence, it can be called restored elixir. Once positive energy has been restored, it becomes increasingly manifest, gradually expanding. At this point, you watch over the furnace and get to work, fostering the positive and repressing the negative. Then positive energy grows and negative energy wanes. This is why overseeing has creativity and development. Creativity is the first return of one yang. Development is the increase and rise of the second yang. Watching over the furnace and getting to work, one culls these two yangs. But even though the two yangs are growing, yin energy is still abundant and yang energy is still weak. It is necessary to be careful to ward off danger. Don't be negligent. but don't be eager either. Take harmony for substance and accord for function, acting in accord with the time, to take from the other without losing from the self. It is beneficial to be correct. Correct means right, overseeing correctly. Before the proper time arrives, one does not seek forcibly, and when the time has arrived, one does not let it slip by. When process and measure are right, the original creative energy does not leak away, and the mechanism of life does not stop. That practice is creative and developmental without obstruction. Otherwise, if one does not know when the medicinal substances are too dense or too feeble, and does not understand when to intensify the work and when to relax it, but starts out impatiently, eager for quick success, then the medicinal substances will not be genuine and the firing process will not be correctly tuned. Those who spurt ahead quickly will fall back rapidly. What will happen then is that once the two yangs have grown smoothly, they will soon dissipate. The positive energy that has developed will disperse, and overseeing will turn into observing. Next hexagram. In the 8th month, there is misfortune. If one's effort is not correct, it will not bear fruit. If it doesn't bear fruit, what is begun will not develop. One loses what one has gained, and the great affair is gone. Therefore, the path of overseeing requires harmonious accord with the time. It is important not to miss in the firing process. And back to our primary hexagram 5, with our changing lines 3 and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They each have their own general context. Changing line 3, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Changing line 5 is the line of the ruler. Hexagram 5, changing line 3. Wading in the mud, bringing on enemies. Explanation. When adamant strength rushes ahead, unable to wait for the proper time, eager for achievement, though one originally wanted to go ahead, one suffers a fall behind. This is likened to wading in the mud. The strength wading in the mud calls for the strength wading in mud calls danger on itself where there is no danger, bringing on enemies. It should be resolved. This is wading that is firm but unaware of danger. And then changing line 5, wading with food and wine. It is good to be correct. Explanation. Positive firmness, correctly balanced, one has inner control and uses the artificial to cultivate the real. Though there is danger, it is as if there were no danger. This is like wading with food and wine. Food and wine are things that soothe the mind and fill the belly. Enjoying the path, one forgets about age. Sometimes there is danger, but the path is not dangerous. Outwardly there is danger, but inwardly it is not dangerous. By correctness, everything turns out well. This is wading that is firm and remains correct. We'll also read the commentary sections on each of our hexagrams, which is a little bit more focused on the alchemical side of things. Hexagram 5. Waiting. Water above, heaven below. Clouds rise to heaven, waiting. The superior person makes merry with food and drink. Waiting means there is something awaited. Above is water, below is heaven. Water vapor rises from earth to sky, where it condenses into clouds. When clouds form in the sky, rain may be expected. This is the image of waiting. What superior people see in this is that when people are unable to attain the universal Tao, it is because they are temperamental and unbalanced in action, because the earthly and the celestial are not in harmony. Therefore, superior people eat and drink to nourish the earthly, causing the earthly to balance the celestial. They make merry to attune the celestial, causing the celestial to join the earthly. When the earthly and the celestial are in mutual harmony, living energy is stored within, producing being from within non-being, spontaneously without forced effort. This happens because the sweet rain of life falls naturally through the coalescing of the energies of heaven and earth. The sprouts of living potential grow when the energies of yin and yang commune. Here, food and drink refers to nurturing the body so that the body is sound. Making merry refers to nurturing the mind so that the mind is unburdened. When body and mind are nurtured, the restorative elixir is easy to crystallize. Herein lies what is known as refining the self and awaiting the proper time. And our supporting hexagram 19, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel. Overseeing, earth above, lake below. Above the lake there is earth, overseeing. Superior people use inexhaustibility of education and thought to embrace and protect the people without bound. Overseeing means overseeing below from above. Below is lake, above is earth. There is earth above the lake. Lakes make things wet, earth supports things, widely providing water and support for the many. This is the image of overseeing. What superior people see in this is that education should be promoted and the life of the people should be stabilized. Therefore, they educate the people tirelessly, thinking of them and teaching them, guiding them with virtue, equalizing them with etiquette, gradually influencing them. Education is endless, and thought is also endless. The purpose is to improve the morals and customs of the populace. The ground of ethics gives abundant life, embracing the people without cruelty, protecting and embracing them, minimizing criminal law, making taxes light, seeing to sufficiency of food and clothing, like taking care of an infant, embracing and protecting without bound. When education and protection are done properly, there is harmony between the leaders and the followers, a unity of will, resulting in an atmosphere of light and peace. This is the way it is when superior people are in positions of authority. But superior people who have no position also teach and protect people in the same way. When superior people instruct others tirelessly, making speeches and writing books, they hope that everyone will become a sage, that every person will attain the way. This too is teaching and thinking exhaustively. The mind of superior people embraces the whole universe, viewing others and self as equals, accepting every being, loving every being. This too is embracing and protecting without bound. Regardless of whether superior people have positions or not, they all aspire to foster life. We will now get a randomly card-drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching and try and sum this puppy up. All right, let's see here. Oh, we already got some. That's a lot. Let's go back. Didn't give me any time to explain. So waiting and overseeing. Primary hexagram, we're waiting, and that is sometimes necessary. Oftentimes when we feel like there's something to be done, it's the most difficult thing to do is just wait. But with our changing lines, it all kind of depends on where you're waiting. Obviously, if we're stuck in the mud, this can call forth danger. And if you're able to wait with friends and have food and drink and be merry, then it's easier to do that. So it kind of depends on where you are in terms of if you are in a position where you're in the correct one. This all, I believe, would make the most sense internally, but also it could be in your external situation. If you're, in a garage during the winter, or, without any kind of discomforts in cold times, that's obviously not the best place to be waiting things out. So it's important in our alchemical idea of this to be waiting in a place that internally we feel is stable. The I Ching is good for that. Even in changing situations, it feels like you can be stable within them. Since this card flipped out now, it's time to read. The overseeing just has to do with looking over the firing process alchemically and making sure that the yang is increasing and the yin is decreasing as far as the negative aspects of yin. And this is kind of good for that. You can do your little magical culling of the fire in there. 65. Combining yin and yang. Create the elixir. 65 of the Tao Te Ching. On my copy is translated by Jia Fufang and Jane English. In the beginning, those who knew the Tao did not try to enlighten others, but kept them in the dark. Why is it so hard to rule? Because people are so clever. Rulers who try to use cleverness cheat the country. Those who rule without cleverness are a blessing to the land. These are the two alternatives. Understanding these is primal virtue. Primal virtue is deep and far. It leads all things back toward the great oneness.